have a fantastic panel by our side to talk about the specific topic on multimodal logistics. Before we kind of start on this, just want to set the context. So there's a lot of confusion at times. What is intermodal? What is multimodal? Basic difference for all of you to know is that when we are using multiple different modes of transport, may it be road or rail, then we talk about intermodal. When there is a end-to-end ownership, then we start to call that as a multimodal logistics. So we are essentially going to talk about the impact of multimodal on the supply chain cost reduction as well as carbon emission. So that is one important piece. As you know that over the past few years, our highways have been growing at a very fast pace. Almost every year, we are making 4,500 odd kilometers of road, or 15 to 17 kilometers per day. So there is a lot of impetus on the infrastructure side, may it be rail or road. Rail has been handling around 1.3 billion tons of freight and growing annually at around 8%, which is barely 27% of the freight which India moves every year. Rail infrastructure has been also increasing almost at a 14 to 15% on an annual basis. And the capex has been growing continuously. So there is a lot of government push on the rail infra, general infra, to bring down the logistics cost of India. And our panel today is actually from FMCG, CPG side, bulk movement related stuff, people from the policy and railways. So I guess we are looking forward to a great discussion onto this, and also from the tech side, where just to look at how exactly we are ready on the technology side as well. So to kind of start with, right, we would essentially be talking about the benefits which multimodal kind of brings for specific sector. And Samrat, let's kind of start with you. That how do you see the kind of benefits which multimodal logistics would bring in to FMCG, CPG sector, as well as raw material procurement?
So good morning, everyone. Nice to be part of this panel, actually. Before I actually start about what I believe, are the benefits, I'll just give one example. So first time when I went out of India, this was about 22, 23 years back. I went along with my wife. So, we organized the trip on our own. So we first of all booked the airline tickets. Then we booked the hotel. Then we had to book the meals. Once we landed there at the airport, we were clueless how to travel from the airport to the hotel. So we had to go for a cab. We decided, okay, cab may be too costly. So we went through a bus. It was a humongous problem, to carry your luggage into the bus and then from the bus stand to the hotel. And then all 7-8 days when I was traveling there, there was a huge problem. And though we enjoyed the trip, but all these issues which we faced during this travel were a baggage which we carried for almost 7-8 years, Later on, people like, Thomas Cook or, Cox and Kings, these agents, they developed into organizations. And that's the difference between, the logistics, which is fragmented versus a multimodal logistics. That's the difference. When there is one single agency who's handling everything, you have to just, pay a certain amount. Right. They will take care of your air freight, air travel. They will take care of your local travel in the country. They will take care of your hotel bookings. You have to just pay at one location, one site, one single payment, right, and everything is taken care of. So that's the kind of difference. And I'm sure, with the coming up of such organizations or agencies, the international travel would have boomed. That's the kind of boom which we are seeing in India also, for whether it is local travel or international travel. So that's just to explain.
Yep.
Now, if we talk about what are the benefits for multimodal in India, I'll just, or for an FMCG company, I'll take, a step back and try to explain how does a supply chain network for FMCG look like. Mm-hmm. So FMCG companies are brands. So we are selling brands basically. And what happens is that there could be a factory. Before the factory, there is, raw material, packing material, which we have to source. Those raw material, packing material would be traveling from our vendors to our warehouses. We will store that material. So because of the forecasting which we do or fluctuations, There could be 20 days, 15 days of inventory which we are maintaining in those warehouses. There could be, you know, losses when you maintain inventory. General losses could be 0.5%, 1%. Your capital is also blocked in that. Then you manufacture, then you take out the material, finished goods, you bring it to your warehouses, you have a transport. When you bring to warehouses, again you maintain 25 days of inventory, 30 days of inventory. Then there is an alternate transport mechanism from your warehouses to the distributors and from distributors to retailers. And every node which is there is maintaining inventory. Now look at the customer. Customer is able to transfer the money to you at the speed of light.
Right.
Okay? He will wire the money. He decides I want to buy a particular product. He will be able to wire money in, you know, in fraction of a second. So what is his expectation? Expectation gets set at that point of time. He wants the goods then and there, right? That's the expectation. And we have this whole paraphernalia of, you know, infrastructure which we have created, all the nodes, inventory, losses. When we deliver the product to the customer, we are actually delivering all these losses, all this additional cost to the customer, which he doesn't want, right? So this is the opportunity which is there. These are the benefits which we'll be able to pass if multimodal logistics we are able to enable within the country. That's the opportunity which is there.
Right.
Now, how much of that opportunity we will be able to realize in next 5 years? How much we'll be able to realize in next 10, 15 years is the question which we have to ask ourselves, the government, and we have to decide what, you know, what mechanism, what infrastructure, what regulations we create for the industry so that we are able to develop all this and we are able to, you know, deliver these benefits to the customer. Now, if I have to become specific, you know, cost is one element, which I have already talked about. Then there could be issues of aging or freshness of the goods. The losses which are, you know, related to each and every node where we are, you know, storing this material. So these are, you know, various losses or cost elements which we will be able to unlock if we are able to, you know, develop the multimodal transport.
No, fantastic. You know, I guess some very, very potent points out there. I'll go to Mayur. Mayur, how do you, given you have been kind of managing bulk materials, cement, paints, all of that, how do you see multimodal logistics further evolving going forward for the bulk sector?
Thanks, Ashu. Good morning, everyone. So while it comes to the bulk movement, and especially to the cement industry and the paint industry, and I represent JK Cement, the white cement and the wall putty business. So the amount of movement which we do in a monthly basis is close to 2.5 lakhs metric ton. And then the type of volume we have, the type of scale we have, and the way we look at the cost reduction, because as compared to a normal FMCG, typical FMCG environment, if you talk about a cement industry, the logistics cost as compared to the percentage to net revenue is always on a higher side. Okay, so there's a lot of pressure on us as a supply chain fraternity that how do we do something new in terms of reduction of logistics cost and how do we bring some sort of innovative ways of working. So what we have been doing is that we have been using both types of, you can say, transportation in our entire value chain ecosystem, which is intermodal and multimodal both. And over last 2-3 years, we have developed our value chain in such a way that from our plants, when we are supplying materials, so to say, to a down south sort of a region, we are supplying it through containers to the railway siding which we have. That's our own private freight terminal which we have built on because we wanted to have that sustainable way of movement. That's why we have heavily invested on that. And from there, it moves via rail to, say, port, Mundra port. From Mundra port, again, it goes to the ship. Okay, the inland waterways vessel is being, it is transferred to there. And from there, it goes to down south. Again, it is offloaded there and then it is delivered through trucks. Last mile delivery happens through trucks. So that's the one sort of example which we have done. Apart from that, we have also come up with the ways and means of working with partners like Concord, Adanis of the world, wherein we are also trying to do multiple slot of deliveries. As we used to do milk routing for our, say, normal vehicle, now even in the railways, we are using this milk run sort of thing, wherein if I have to supply, say, 50 containers to Chennai and 50 containers, 40 containers to, say, Bangalore. So there's an option available now, wherein we can club those deliveries, and that's how we are taking the benefits and leverage of that. Apart from that, this is regarding the cost. We have been working on increasing our railways ratio as compared to the entire ecosystem which we work upon. So in last couple of years, we have increased our railway coefficient from say 54% to 69 sort of percent as of now. And as we try to exit this year, we would be around 72%. We are working very closely with Indian Railways, the senior DOMs of the region, the other people, and the other IRTS people, and also with our partners. Apart from that, we have also developed a ecosystem on hub and spoke model. So while a normal traditional cement would have 3 SKUs, 4 SKUs, but when I talk about my current portfolio, I have got 125 SKUs, which talks about cement, epoxy grouts, tile adhesives, and say wall putties. So 125 SKUs into 130 warehouses, which I have currently in my kitty. So it becomes a lot of challenge for me to ensure that every warehouse has that inventory available. As Samrat was talking about, the inventory carrying cost and other things is also huge. So we have come up with certain hubs in the ecosystem because use of this intermodal and multimodal transportation service, wherein we are storing our material to these hubs, and from these hubs, we are moving this material because it's a volume game. We can move it through railways and through multimodal logistics, which gives me a benefit of cost, which also gives me joy of doing some social cause by reducing the carbon emissions if it moves through railways. And then from there, we are moving the material to my last mile customers or my warehouses. So this is how we have been working on that. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I guess one point is very common in terms of both Samrat and you see that there is unlocking of inventory, which is a big piece. If that is something which is addressed, then there will be a further cost reduction possibility, right? Which is there. Cool. Alok, you represent a lot of customers. You represent a lot of customers from a cold chain standpoint. How do you see in terms of using domestic multimodal for cold chain logistics?
Hi, thank you, Ashish. Ashutosh.
Yeah.
So primarily, Ashu, if we talk about the Indian scenario, or the domestic movement of cold chain, the users are pretty much growing, with time, and especially the frozen food, the QSR, the pharma requirements, it's tremendously growing day by day. I mean, what we used to see a decade ago and the use that we see today has phenomenally grown. So what is required is certainly, I mean, there is two segments to it. One is obviously the bulk movers, Ashu, and secondary is the piecemeal cargo that we are mostly engaged with. We as a company and even the other service providers in the cold chain segment are more or less engaged with the domestic and piecemeal movement of the cold chain cargo. So there's a big gap here, what we see when we want to, move towards using a multimodal transportation. There's a lot that can happen jointly between road and rail and maybe waterways as we grow further. But the challenge that we see as of now, though, I mean, since we are seldomly using any rail services as of now, we are primarily on road right now. We are using road containers, we are using all sorts of mechanism which is required to, reach out to the customer even at a B2C level also. So earlier it used to be a B2B movement, now it has gone to the B2C level, thankfully with the use of, with the upcoming e-commerce trends, But yes, I think if there's some infra which is made available for ensuring intact handling and ensuring that there's no break in the cold chain at the point of where we do the crossing from road to or do the first mile and do the last mile, that is where we need some support, and that's what, I mean, during our discussion with Rajneesh, we were having a good insight about it. So yes, at present, it's negligible. Barring few companies that they tried. Nestle was one of them. They tried their hands with railways. Few VPUs were developed, but then success story was not there and it got dropped off. So I think that encouragement should be there from the industry or from the government side, which will support people like us or companies like us and simultaneously passing on the benefit to the end customer. So that is the reason, though there's a dream to see the single digit movement of freight charges, but when you talk about cold chain, people normally frown at, because it never goes or never cuts down to single digit. It always remains a double digit, and that's one of the reasons actually.
Sure. Cool. So one point you also kind of mentioned about e-commerce. Let me kind of now get to Apurva, right? Apurva, you take care of service a lot of e-commerce companies like Snapdeal and others as well as D2C brands. So how do you see shift towards multimodal for a lot of them? What are the kind of opportunities which you see?
Thanks a lot, Ashu. So absolutely, e-commerce is a absolutely opposite spectrum of, let's say, cement on one side, or let's say FMCG, maybe somewhere in between. And e-commerce companies, as we all know, their cost structure is such that the last mile cost is the biggest one, 50% of it. And that is something they can't help because that's their nature of business. They need to really deliver to home. So all of them obviously are looking at the other 50%. How do I reduce the other 50%? We all know that roadways is the most expensive way of transportation, and e-commerce, in fact, in India started by using airlines as the mode of transportation fundamentally, when they had really no way of reaching across the country. Over time, they have increased their share of every mode, and of course, transportation has become much more like any other industry, and road today again dominates the long-haul part of the e-commerce. They are very keen to use railways because big country. Look at e-commerce. I want a small item in a town in, let's say, near to Coimbatore, and I'm manufacturing somewhere in Jodhpur. If I am not able to make that item reach fast enough to you, in Coimbatore, then I'm going to buy somewhere locally and not use online method. So how do I make the material reach fastest possible way from Jodhpur, let's say all the way to Coimbatore? So railway is the obvious way of doing it. So they are very keen to use railways in many different ways so that the overall turnaround time is cut down. So their worry is not so much only the cost part of it, but the turnaround time part of it. Only problem that they have is that how do they make sure so many different small items gather into one place, reach a nearest possible railway station. At that very time, a relevant railway wagon is available. They load it, unload it in good time. And when they calculate the overall turnaround time, they find out that today, even though the running time of the railway is way lesser as compared to the truck's running time, the end-to-end turnaround time is more. So they've also restricted themselves to bulk movement, which means between their warehouses of known large items. And that's what they're using it for in a very big way. Amazon, for example, is a big user of railways today. We have customers who are helping them with the railways to kind of move cargo cross country. But generally speaking, e-commerce is, because of their need to, do the turnaround time in a very defined way, even though railway becomes a very important part of that component, are not using it in that big a way as possible. Obviously, railways, as we all know, will help you in the overall long-haul core network part of it. But when you want to really reach out to the end part of, let's say, the country, today, on the cargo side, the railway is not so much enabled a movement to go absolute to the last point. It's not economically viable for many of the time. So e-commerce is still, grappling with how much of railways to use. Wherever they can, they are doing. But still, road remains their preferred mode of transportation.
Sure. No, interesting point. I also kind of saw a couple of movements wherein using parcel vans, right, where e-commerce moved to a location where there was no next day delivery, and as soon as that started, within say 2 months or so, almost 40 to 50 times the order volume grew for them, right? So there are interesting use cases, right, which are kind of coming out these days. So given the kind of modal shift which government is trying to drive, and at the policy front, Vinodji and Rajneesh, you are working on that. How do you see, in terms of driving shift towards multimodal logistics, right, for both FMCG, e-commerce, right? What is the broad thought process at how that is happening right now on the ground, which you are kind of working on?
As you said, I'll first talk about the bulk side of the
Sure.
things. As you said that your rail coefficient is constantly increasing, and a lot of warehousing you have to do so that the supply chain is properly maintained. So till last 3-4 years, railways has been basically focusing upon the bulk cargo. So anybody who wants to book the entire rake is welcome, but we were not focusing on the piecemeal cargo. But in last 2 years, we have slightly shifted our strategy, and we have started focusing on the piecemeal cargo as well. As you must be reading in the newspapers that we have set a target of doubling our loading, doubling our cargo handling. Last year we loaded around 1418 million tons, and by 2027 we have set a target of loading 3000 million tons. So that is more than double, and that is a very, very ambitious target. So we also realize that there's a huge market of the piecemeal cargo, which does not suit to our current policies. So as far as I represent the Delhi division of Indian Railways, as far as Delhi division is concerned, we took an initiative in 2020 that why shouldn't we engage the small businesses or the people who are dealing with the piecemeal traffic. So we did some experiment and the response was amazing. And let me tell you, in last 2 years, we have moved around 2,500 piecemeal wagons, which is big, which is huge. And the earning to Indian Railways, to Delhi division particularly, has been more than 100 crores. So we just unlocked ourselves not a small bit, and the response was fantastic. But the issue that Indian Railways is facing is that the shortage of the wagons. We do not have sufficient amount of wagons. As soon as the demand of the rakes moves up, we get constrained, and we feel problems in supplying the wagons in the piecemeal form. Because supplying wagons in piecemeal, suppose I am loading a wagon at Jind or at Sonipat, and I have to transport it to say Chennai or to Guwahati, I have to find a suitable train with which it will be attached. Because if I run a single wagon from here to Chennai, it will not be viable for us as far as the cost is concerned. So we have been making a lot of effort in the area of piecemeal, and we have got a lot of success. The constant talk is going on in Railway Board also, that we should unlock, we should open ourselves to the piecemeal handling. And recently, Railway Board has allowed us to run one weekly service from here to the northeastern region, Guwahati. That letter has come just 3 days back. So what I'll be doing, I have already started doing the marketing. What I'll be doing is that in Northern Railways, I represent the Delhi division, similarly Ambala division, and there's the one division called Firozpur division. So 3 of us will be accumulating their small players, very small players. So we have all contacted them that please raise, do your marketing, raise your demand. We'll clubbing all the wagons and we'll form a single rake. And it will be sort of a weekly service which will be run to the northeastern region. So maybe if this gets regularized, maybe we can convert that weekly service into bi-weekly, later on a tri-weekly or per day service also. Similarly, we also feel that there's a lot of scope of moving piecemeal cargo from this area to the southern region also. There are a lot of cargo moving from here to there and there to here. So we have been slightly changing our strategy. As far as the movement of the e-commerce and FMCG is concerned, again being the government system, we were like focusing only on the bulk cargo. But we have been carrying the parcel as well with our trains. So as you said that there's a lot of scope of moving cargo in the trains in these small quantities. So what we have done in last 2-3 years, we have engaged Amazon with us. So there were some hiccups initially, but now the things have gone in a very good way, and Amazon is greatly engaged with us, and they are sending their e-commerce material to Guwahati. They are sending their material to Bangalore, Chennai, Mumbai. So all the metro cities Amazon is sending through Indian Railways. And that is where the opportunity lies, that we would be very keen to engage other e-commerce and FMCG companies. Maybe I was just sitting over here, I was thinking that I'll be organizing a seminar sort of a thing in my premises, and I'll be inviting everybody who's dealing with FMCG and e-commerce, and let us talk, let us explore that how Indian Railways can be a partner in this thing, and we'll be very happy to associate you all with us, And we'll be very happy to move the cargo through railways, because as you said, railway is a very faster mode of transport, and as well as it is a greener mode of transport. And let me tell you, recently we have started giving the carbon credits to our customers. So those carbon credits are as of now notional, but later on, maybe 5 years later, as the ministry decides, maybe we start giving the monetization also of those carbon credits. So right now, if you transport with us, the railway receipt will be saying that you have earned this much of carbon credit.
Interesting.
So we are very keen to move the small cargo also, and we are very keen to provide the customized solutions also. So I think I'll be inviting you all, so that we can discuss further and how we can be partner in this.
Very interesting points, Rajneesh ji. Vinod ji, you have been working on various aspects, right? Container movement, normal Indian Railways movement, now with the DFC in terms of strategy planning. You would have looked at a lot of these industry problems very closely, and in terms of chalking out the strategy to drive the modal shift. So now, how do you see, what are the broad level plans which you think would be required to kind of push the multimodal shift going forward?
Thank you, Ashu. Good morning, everyone. In DFC, my strongest or the major strength is we run longer, faster, heavier, and wider trains. So these are the 4 things, and we are quite happy with respect to that. And my solutions at DFC revolve around all these 4 aspects: how I can reduce the logistic cost of the FMCG or cement industry or container terminal operators. This is what I am looking for. Secondly, I want to reduce this warehousing cost, how I can be a partner in that. And thirdly, that how I can reduce your inventory so that the losses are minimized. In fact, for last more than 1 year, we are running trains on WDFC as well as EDFC, and we are able to make an impact. There are terminals of JK Cement also, and their loading with the railways have already increased, and you have already told that. And in fact, turnaround has been quite impressive, and more than 7 to 8 hours in one trip has been saved. If from their loading terminal to Mundra terminal, the time taken is compared before this WDFC. And another factor is that we are having this is a greenfield project, and we are having a land along our alignment as well as along our new goods sheds. And we have already asked for this public-private partnership under Gati Shakti policy. We are open with respect to that, and lot of opportunities are available in Delhi area as well as along the terminals on WDFC. So you can establish your warehouses. And the next important point which has been raised by, I think, Mr. Alok, that yes, railway has to do a lot with respect to first and last mile connectivity. In that context, we are open to run TOT, truck on train services. So that is a solution for this first and last mile connectivity. And similarly, Apurva has expressed that a lot of e-commerce industries are interested in moving the non-bulk cargo as well as parcel. And in fact, we are looking for the opportunities that we should run an EMU train for non-bulk cargo consolidation on DFC. And the average speed of the train on DFC is more than 50 kilometers per hour. In fact, running of trains on DFC has already improved the speed of the neighboring zonal railways like NWR or North Central Railway. So we are able to make a big impact with respect to that. Then one point I have to say that, okay, we are saying that we are using the road sector because it's more flexible with respect to pricing also. But I request you to see into the hidden cost. There is not a legal compliance. There are a lot of issues of tax evasion. And the regulations or the laws are better implemented on railway sector. So as a society or as a nation, we have to see that how we are passing the some cost which are not being accounted for. So it's a big issue. It has an environmental impact also, in fact. If you are naturally a truck wala jo hai, one truck provider can easily reduce the rate if he is getting something in the empty return. And he will not look for that what is the specification of his truck. He will go for the higher load also. Naturally, the emission level will be quite high. So these are also the factors which have to be looked into. But with respect to DFC, we know the requirements of industry and we are quite moving in that. We have improved our IT systems also so that you can track your consignments. We are working in that direction also. So I should say that DFC strategy is more or less aligned towards your requirement. If I give the figures of this, I have brought some figures that yes, because of DFC, the previous from Concord terminal in Ateli, which was Kathuwas to Mundra, it was taking, the load was taking 48.25 hours for a trip. Now it has reduced to 41.4 hours. Similarly, CMLK to Pipava, the 51.75 hour has reduced to 41.8. And Gadi Harsarup to Mundra, 42 hours have reduced to 36 hours. So there is a substantial improvement with respect to that. And one thing more with respect to cement industry and rail coefficient, I have to say that the terminals of Shri Cement, Ultratech Cement, they have shown, JK Lakshmi, they have shown growth of Shri Cement 3%, this Ultratech 29%, and JK Lakshmi 45% increase in loading. So this says that yes, we are going to make a big impact and our strategy revolves around that only, so that we should reduce your cost and turn around.
Thank you.
Adding to that, what Vinod sir said, as far as the first and last mile is concerned, we are discussing to come up with a policy of first and last mile services. So possibly we'll be issuing a policy wherein somebody can come and provide the first and last mile services to the customer also. And we are also working upon developing a platform wherein a smallest of the customer can generate a demand. It will be a platform where the customer as well as the logistic service provider will be there. So if the customer generates a demand, say he has to send a consignment of say 100 kgs. So the alert will go to respective logistic service providers based on the area where they work in. And they'll be, once they get the demand, they'll be able to quote the prices to the customer for the faster service or for the slower service. So as per the requirement of the customer, if he chooses to go with the particular logistic service provider, so we'll give the option to that logistic service provider to generate the demand through that portal and then convert it into demand for railways, and accordingly we'll be providing the VPUs or the small rakes or the bigger rakes. So we are thinking of working on those lines. I'm not disclosing the name of the platform, but I'm working on it vigorously. So as Indian Railways, we are trying to be more customer friendly as well as to digitize ourselves so that there's ease of doing business for the customer.
Interesting. Samrat, one quick thing, right? So in terms of, we don't see FMCGs using not too much of multimodal transportation, right? What are the top 2 or 3 challenges which you see, and what is it that you require to kind of solve for it, right? Are there any thoughts around it?
Yeah, so thank you, Ashu. I think the biggest, top 3 or 4 challenges which we face as FMCG companies and in our inability to basically use multimodal. I think first and foremost is that in India, and some of the panelists have already talked about, we are still relying more on road for our, freighting basically. The next best is railways. Air is, very limited, costs are humongous, and waterways, if at all it is born, it is, in its nascent stage. So that is the biggest challenge, that there are 1 or 2 modes of transport only, and the costs there, I think railways is coming down probably, but road we are all aware that the costs are increasing. We know how the fuel prices have increased. We know how the cost of vehicles has increased. Of course, there are certain savings also. We talked about it earlier as well. Certain benefits in terms of maybe better infrastructure of road, so that maybe the running time has reduced. So lead times have reduced. Turnaround of trucks has improved. So probably some savings there, but it has still not been able to beat the inflation of cost of vehicles as well as fuel. So other channels are not available at all. So that is the biggest challenge. In the last 22 years, let me tell you, of my being in the industry, there are very few warehousing players who have come and told me, they will come and tell me, okay, my warehouse is on NH1, my warehouse is on NH8. No one comes and tells me, okay, my warehouse is next to the railway track or some train docking station. No one talks about any waterways or infrastructure around that. So that tells the story actually. So infrastructure of warehousing is not there. Standardization in terms of containers, etc. That is also government is working on it, and I must appreciate that government is listening as well. And people are inviting. So now people are telling us to why don't you, Rajneesh is talking, Vinod is talking, why don't you come and meet us and give input? So that's the good part. With that, what happens is the expectation increases. So our expectation probably is much beyond, and I think such discussions and interventions from the government side will help. But still, till now, that infrastructure is missing. That's one part of the story. The other side, if we talk about only railways, and if I have to have a multimodal system for myself, where a 3PL is there who's able to pick up the goods from my factory and take it right up to my distributor.
Yep.
I need players who have, such infrastructure of transport where they have big trucks for the primary distribution, they have warehousing, and then they should have smaller trucks for distributing up to the distributors, because my distributors may be lying in areas where the bigger trucks will not be able to ply at all. They may be, some person will be in Daryaganj, Old Delhi, and we will require smaller vehicles there. So there is no big player who is present end to end. Very few players are there who are end to end present, and they have that infrastructure. Now, why they are not there, some of the panelists again have talked about. If we talk about road transport, very limited control, and almost maybe we hear that maybe 8 or 9 out of the 10 trucks which are plying on the road are by small operators who are not compliant completely, and the bigger transporters have to be compliant. So there is a huge competition, and the bigger players are not able to survive because of that. That is one big challenge which they are facing. The second challenge is that infrastructure in terms of being able to attract drivers for driving those trucks. So there is a huge shortage of drivers also which is there. So any company which is taking care of the drivers, the cost, yeah, sorry, I think you pointed out late if I'm not audible. Yeah, so the drivers are not available. So that's one big challenge which I think the industry is facing. So because of this, I think big players are not there. And then I think if someone wants to actually interconnect between multimodal systems of transport, that interconnectivity between the different channels is also not there, between railways and maybe a trucking company, or if we have to use waterways, and we tried doing that. So, that interconnectivity is not there, because of which, you do not understand whether your overall freight system is reliable or not, because a logistics professional, what he hates the most is inability to, correctly predict.
Right.
So I think these are some of the challenges which are there, which if we are able to overcome, and I definitely see that we are traveling on that road.
Right.
The speed, as it increases, our expectation of the speed, goes beyond what we are traveling on. So, that's it.
Sure. Cool. So I guess we are short on time bit. I'll just quickly pose same question to you, Mayur. In terms of top challenge which you see, right, in terms of while you're already using almost 70% of your volumes over on a multimodal way, but what would it take from your perspective to get to a 90% and drive down the cost further and improve the service qualities?
Ashutosh, a correction there, 70% is the rail coefficient, not the multimodal part.
Okay.
But then again, is the question you have pointed out rightly is that nowadays there are 2-3 challenges, big challenges which I foresee with regard to the multimodal thing. One is the excessive paperwork. So sometimes what happens that when there is a shift in the, you can say, type of transport, sometimes you get multi-bills. So there's a different bill for roadways, there's a different bill for railways, there's a different bill for waterways. So then it becomes a challenge for us for accounting processes and all. Another thing is in terms of the handling infrastructure. Suppose, as Samrat was also banging on that point, so suppose if I am dealing with the cement bags, so I have shifted the material from my factory to the railway point. So I don't know how it is being handled there. Then when it is being shifted to some other mode of transport, how it is being shifted, how it is being handled. Whether some manhandling has happened, how much of damage, in transit damage we have. Because as compared to the complete movement, which is end-to-end movement by containers, and then when you talk about a multimodal, the type of damages which we get, these are in a percentage on a very higher side. Okay. Number 2. Number 3 is with regard to the visibility of my movement. Okay. So when I shift even through railways, so there is a system which is a voice system wherein I can track. But now I have gone ahead because it's a tech time. So I have tied up with a US based firm which is a Rombi sort of devices and which are the solar devices and which I stick to my containers. So these are solar propelled devices which gets charged en route and I get a complete visibility of my shipment and I can predict when my shipment will reach. Okay. But when it is a multi-modal shipment, when it is getting transferred into multi-modes, I have no clue. Okay, sometimes I have to, you can say, be dependent on say certain phone calls or say certain follow-ups. And that's the least which I would like to do, or any logistics professional would like to do. So these are certain challenges, but as mentioned by our fellow panelists from railways and by other people also, I think India is now developing in terms of how do you dwell on developing that multi-modal infrastructure, and the way Indian Railways is also working on the Gati Shakti things and other things. I think very soon we'll find some sort of solution to this problem. Yeah.
Sure. Cool. So I guess interesting point in terms of paperwork, visibility, seamlessness, and Apurva, given you run Webxpress and working on some technology as well. So how are you thinking about solving for this problem? Because this is a big problem from a multimodal operation standpoint, right? Because there are more and more documents which gets added with every transaction. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And this is the key issue with a lot of people. They say that even though operationally feasible, if I do not have visibility and the ownership of the cargo and any damage which happens in which leg of the cargo, if I'm not able to find that out, it becomes a very big problem from the end logistics manager point of view. Ultimately, he is the owner of the cargo and he is asked question by the marketing that why your product is reaching in a damaged condition. The good part is that today it's much more easier to get data from multiple systems and put into one. In fact, Railway has been doing a fantastic job in Gati Shakti. In fact, one of the biggest part of Gati Shakti is a single API, which will plug in multiple data within various parts of our overall country's infrastructure into one place. It's emerging very fast, and we are in fact engaging with them to see how it can work. And software companies like us, for example, many other software companies, let's say SAP, will be able to connect to these readily available data points and give a visibility without, let's say, somebody like Mayur getting out of his own screen of SAP and getting into 5 different login systems. He gave this example of Rombi. In fact, we work with them too, and I'm aware of how they work. But that's only possible in a very limited scenario where entire container is in my hand. Imagine if you are moving one box of TV. And it is going multi-mode, once in road, then railway, then let's say again getting off into a smaller vehicle, ultimately into a, let's say, smaller van and reaching you home. How do I get data from all of them today? Is becoming easier. So good news is that 2 to 3 years of time, we should be able to at least not worry about the visibility part of it. The operational challenges, of course, everybody has talked about. And I think there is good future ahead for everybody in that.
Sure. Vinodji, now given you are driving the strategy as well, right? So in terms of working on some of these challenges with respect to the paperwork in terms of moving from one mode to another and seamlessly providing data connectivity as well as in terms of visibility, are there specific projects which you are also driving to kind of bring more visibility and transparency to the overall system and also smoothness in terms of paperwork?
Definitely, IT solutions are the main tool for that. In that sector itself, we have developed in-house application, dedicated freight information system, and we are going for the integration of this dedicated freight information system with our technological other tools like train monitoring system, which is there in DFC. It's being provided by the various vendors. International vendors are there like Hitachi, Alstom. So we are going to integrate DFIS with train monitoring system as well as other IT applications of railways like ICMS, COA, FOIS. So we are going for integration of that. And another point is that we are already working on a door-to-door concept for consolidation of non-bulk cargo, and we are working on a portal where we can have means the customer is able to know about the status of his consignment. And the same sort of options which Rajneesh has already told with respect to railways, same sort of options that, okay, he can choose between the different other partners, logistics partners. So this is what we are looking for, and we are already aware of that. And with respect to tracking also, we are working that yes, the tracking should be through the handheld device or through the RFID devices. In that direction we are.
While this is a very ambitious target, right, which Rajneesh also mentioned in terms of driving onto the multimodal logistics front, some key points in terms of how do we unlock the inventory part in terms of using some of the land assets which are there. There's a lot of work which is happening. So I guess that that tells us that going forward in terms of bringing our logistics costs down, there's a lot of effort and a lot of industry participation which is also required kind of to build more solutions there. So I guess fantastic set of insights what we got. If there are any specific questions of anyone, we'll be happy to kind of answer. Okay, I guess we are a bit short on time, so one question? Okay, only one question for now. Yeah.
Okay, good morning. Actually, I have a query to the railways about that. You are talking about the carbon footprints, and I would like to know that with respect to the road transport and the train journey, in terms of the goods freight and all, what is the difference in the per kilometer in that one? You are telling about that one, the advantage of that.
You're asking about the price or the carbon footprint?
No, carbon footprint.
I cannot just tell you offhand, but there's a calculation that we have developed through a software. So that is available on our website. If you go to the CRIS website, or the IT arm, CRIS has developed it. So it depends upon the which network you are going on. Like if there's a parallel highway, for example, if you're booking
no, it is a matter of per kilometer simply. Whether it is a road or it is a train, per kilometer, what is the carbon credits advantage we get as compared to the road transport?
It depends on which particular corridor you are moving in. For example, if you are moving your cargo from Delhi to Bombay, and you are moving your cargo from Delhi to say Jodhpur, it depends. There are multiple parameters to it, like whether the 4-lane highway is available to it, whether the highway that available from one node to other node is a 2-lane highway. Similarly, it also considers the railway network also. If from one node to other node, if the single line section is there or double line section is there, or if it is a 4-line section, the congestion will be less. So there are a lot of factors which we incorporate while calculating it. So I just cannot tell you offhand.
So sir, I think, thanks Uday, you allowed only one participant to ask a question because he ended up asking the most difficult one actually. I'll tell you, see, the fact of matter is that people are not able to measure their existing carbon footprint. That's the biggest challenge which industry is facing, not even in India, it's worldwide. There are only 9 to 10% of the users that, they are able to actually identify what is their actual carbon footprint. And the remaining 90%, the assessment is that almost 60% of their carbon footprint is actually measured. They have an error of almost 30 to 40%. So it's very difficult to know.
I'm well aware about that because the detailed study is required into that one, and lot of parameters takes place into this one, consideration for that one.
Yeah.
But I thought that because railway is a big giant and all, they must have done it to attract the more business towards them.
So they'll be able to probably find out their own carbon footprint, but if you have to compare with your existing one, that's a very difficult job, and companies are trying to do it, but I think a distance is yet to be
Time has come for that for railways also.
There is an answer, and you can do that. I can tell you, there is an eco-transit tool. Eco-transit tool is there on the website itself. And I will give you the figures also. And on the Eco Transit tool, you choose the two destination, means origin to destination, and choose the type of vehicle also. In terms of different trucks are there, and their specifications are there, and choose the train also. And then decide the traction also, whether it is the electric traction or whether it is a diesel traction. Suppose I have taken 5,000 ton, I have to move from Delhi to, I took this study from Ludhiana to Mumbai. From Ludhiana to Mumbai, I am going to move 5,000 ton through trucks or through train. Electric traction, diesel traction, or truck also of different category. Kitni ton capacity wala hai. So on the basis of that, you feed the parameters. And the emission also, there are 4 or 5 types of emission. We are more concerned about the carbon dioxide. There is a sulfur dioxide. Other emissions are also, 4 or 5 emissions are also there in this Eco Transit tools. When you compare, the emissions in the road is 2.5 times more than rail for per kilometer transportation. So this gives you the answer. For the another type of emission, it's 1.5 time. For the third type, it's 1.3 time. So the establishment is there that, okay, rail is more safe, more eco-friendly, but there is a catch. If you are going for electricity which is being used for rail transportation and it is produced by coal, then you are just going for a eyewash. You are saying that, okay, that's,
Thank
so
you.
I request you, you can go through that Eco Transit tool.
Thank you very much, panelists. Thank you.